AI will never replace.
Genuine artistic expression, I would say. Like, that's the thing that I think it has the hardest time replacing. I say that anyone who's like genuinely wants to continue supporting the arts can't really continue support, or like can't genuinely support or allow AI to like try to replace those people. I think that's one thing it shouldn't and can't, even if we allowed it to replace, is like a genuine new idea or like a way of expressing a cool idea. It's all
No,
just derivative.
so I think you have founded Deep Sea back in 2020, I guess, right?
Yeah, we did it just as COVID was setting in. I left my job at Pixelate and then started exploring what this might be. We started, with a really specific problem we were trying to solve, and that was unraveling the black market for traffic, CPV, pop under, redirect type schemes, which a lot of my clients suffered from at the time when I was on the agency side. And it's become a lot more since then. But yeah, we started trying to build like purpose-built crawlers to add a missing dimension to the intelligence landscape in digital advertising.
I mean, you were in Pixel doing, I think, analysis, quality analysis. How did you think to start? I mean, why did you want to start specifically in this area?
Yeah, at Pixelate I was working on IVT detection algorithms for CTV and mobile primarily. Naturally, that's where a lot of spend was going and still is going, but I still saw a hole in the web measurement landscape, which I thought I would like to see filled. At least I was trying to build the data set that I wanted, so very selfishly, not really thinking about, product validation at the time. So, we learned a lot over time about how to, package and sell a product, but really I just wanted something selfishly, and that's how this came into being. How it came into being. I wanted to, a lot of the problems that my clients faced in the past, despite running IVT detection tags, would be today classified as some flavor of like MFA or just like stuff
Right.
that would fail what Chris Kane calls the screenshot test, like stuff that your clients would be pissed off if they saw that their ads appeared on, even though it may have showed to a human, even though, it was a viewable ad. It's still like there was a sort of disconnect between what was a like human and non-fraud impression and what was like a quality impression. And so like bridging
Mhm.
that gap has recently become, our reason for doing what we do.
Yeah, and I think web measurements stay as strong as they were earlier also. Even with the new formats and new inventory types coming in, web measurements are still very important. And I think given the AI landscape also now, it has become even more important because now, as you said, right, the viewability is there, the website is there, everything is there, but now the content is not the right content. And now, how do you figure that
Exactly.
out?
And, even unintentionally, sometimes we uncover things that relate to fraud that stems from in-app sessions. Like recently, we know we're not the only ones. I think White Ops came out with something that was a bunch of like WebView H5 gaming sites that were loaded surreptitiously. Like, and I've seen flavors of this. Like either it's, maladvertising where they load, iframes under delivered ad content, or like an app itself is wholly devoted to loading hidden web views or something like that. Like there's a spectrum where it's the publisher's fraud all the way to where it's like a malicious buyer who then turns around and does, arbitrage either transparently or opaquely. Um, and
Yeah.
sometimes those relate to web traffic. So like identifying web traffic as much as we can even helps the in-app problem to an extent. Like obviously it's a very different problem, but there are connections. It's like the web research we do is not irrelevant, despite the fact that, investment in web channels is in decline, relatively speaking.
This prior to this, you were a traffic quality specialist at Conversant.
Yeah, that's right. I learned everything that, I have applied later in my life for sure. I had really good team leadership. Shout out Jeff Mickelson at Conversant Epsilon. He, along with one of my best friends who now is at Pixelate still, but, taught me the fundamentals of the problem. Like I've always just been a hobbyist in technology. So this learning about this world and realizing how much it aligned with my interests was exciting. And, I didn't know any SQL beforehand. And if I had like the most single marketable skill that I picked up there was, probably SQL in combination with the domain expertise. Like learning to query a database is useless unless you have the domain expertise. And I'd say like I had a really good chance to get down and dirty with the problems there.
And I think that SQL understanding also goes deeper now because you're handling big data. So there's
always have. It's nice. Actually, one of the ways. So our other co-founder, Antonio, our CTO, we had collab. He used to have a development shop. Him and some of our other co-founders would do whatever. They would design apps. They'd design corporate websites. And one of the things they had us working on was a fantasy football app. And applying those skills in that sort of environment, I found fun, and it let us get a taste for working together and see what we could do, and turned into Deep Sea. But it was interesting working with a smaller data set. There's a very advertising, the data sets are ridiculously huge, and it's the quality of data is so much different when you collect it from the web than when you're working with a structured data set of, say, sports statistics. It's hard to even compare, really, because you'll understand very well. It's just so ugly, the data we work with a lot of the time, and understanding when it's even applicable, when it can or can't be used for whatever purpose you're trying to apply it for is really hard. I'd say, actually, my expertise is in feature design and, turning time series data into features. Is sort of where the skill that has benefited me the most in the work at any of these shops.
Right, because I think there's a lot of data you collect. Some of the data makes sense to you. Then do you retain it for 12 months, 6 months? And that problem is also there, right? Because as you said, right, you're designing features. How much do you retain? How much do you analyze?
Yeah, what have you seen? I've been out of the tag measurement sort of space for a while. So what do you think has changed, in the past few years? I haven't been there.
I think in terms of the type of data we are seeing, we started off with only push and pop earlier, analyzing it from the networks, and then we expanded to other inventories. So we do pretty much all the inventories right now. I think when it comes to specifically fraud detection, we see a lot of residential proxy-based fraud, kind of very, very slow and human patterns, which appear very hard to detect. It's not fairly easy to catch them. But over a period of time, unless you do pattern analysis, time analysis, you're able to catch them. This is something which we are seeing more often this year. I think for the last 3-4 months, it has increased. But prior to that, it wasn't that rampant. But now I've been hearing about from some of the R players and some of the other guys in the network space that there are some kinds of frauds which have hit the industry in the last 3-4 months, which on the other side, human or right, in fact, for Google search and Yahoo feed guys are also finding it hard to kind of correlate.
Yeah, it seems like there's just been a explosion of, classical content crawling for, whatever LLMs any number of people are building. So that's certainly one problem. And, an easy remedy for that is apply data center blocklists, which then will push people to proxy data centers, or data center proxies, or, residential proxies. So I'm sure that is at least in part contributing to what you see. How does that problem relate, do you think, to CTV measurement, where, there's any number of reasons that you might be talking to a proxy server when your tag fires?
Yeah, so what we do is, right, we have built a set of around 200 filters. And these filters are applicable specific. Some of them are applicable to a specific inventory type. So not all of them are applicable to everything. So if you're running CTV traffic, there are a set of filters which you can switch on. They'll only work with that data points. And in a lot of cases in the CTV space or in the video space also, you might get the SSI IPs coming in, which is not the scenario for you. So it's very hard to just take a IP block list. IP block list is a very, very primitive and a rudimentary method to kind of block. You need to look at patterns. You need to look at all the other signals which are coming in, triangulate them, then figure out, is it happening? Or is it happening in the moment, or is it happening 7 days from now also? Yeah. So if it is happening 7 days from now, then you have a problem which is kind of repeatable, and you know that, okay, there is something wrong here. Then figure out the supply and then tell them that, hey, work with the supply. Ask them to change the feed. Ask them to change the data. But it's surprising, right? In some cases, we see some supplies giving 70%, 80% suspicious traffic, fraud traffic. In some cases, some cases slightly better, but some people are very accepting that they know that this problem exists and they want to do something about it. But some people want to live with it and they want to monetize that piece also. Also, I think you highlighted a partnership with Chalice AI, right? If I'm pronouncing it correctly.
Yeah, that's one of our newest partnerships. You've been very out in public about the signals they use. They were using Sincera prior. Sincera got in-house to Trade Desk. Now they use us for much the same function. But basically, they've always allowed their clients to bring, historical data, to set up the customized bidding models to help optimize for, whatever their success metric is. And now they're additionally overlaying signals that we have around quality across different, a gradient, different metrics. Maybe someone cares about, maybe someone doesn't. One that I've seen be pretty impactful is presence of video multiplay. It can be as simple as an outstream player that is running at the same time as sort of a interstitial or in-stream video edit, whatever it is. those it can be that, or like, you know, muted rate or obtrusive ads. Like a lot of the time that takes the form of rewarded ads right now, like rewarded ads that take over the screen and prevent further interaction. And then there's the obvious metrics people cite a lot, which are like density and refresh timing. And right now we're providing at the page level, and also various aggregates at the path level, the URL path level, where like we don't have page exact information. We, you know, still provide as close to exact as possible as, you know, fallbacks. We have it at the domain level, which we make available to the rest of our clients. So that's, I guess, the difference. Like Chalice is getting something that no one else really has access to right now, which is the page level insights, and as close to real time as is reasonable, pretty close to real time. And we also make that data available to at the domain level to any number of clients we have.
I mean, so when you work with all these publishers, you must be kind of crawling them all the time because the sites may change. There could be a site which is a valid one, then suddenly it becomes a parking site, or it
absolutely
could change to something else. They may have a certain Google Analytics tag, and suddenly the tag might change. A lot of these activities these people do, right? I mean, and the age of the site. So how is your structure? You keep on crawling them all the time, or you have arrangements with the publishers?
We do so we've always so this type of arrangement obviously does require a larger scale of crawling. We sample very, very highly where possible. That means, so like maybe, you know, 10 opinions in a month might have been reasonable before. For certain types of sites, it's perfectly applicable. Like some sites we go there one time and we know the opinion we're going to give. We don't need to go back. Yeah, I think the answer to your question is that any crawl business, probably the most valuable or like the most important thing you do is direct the crawler. Like not so much even the data you collect, but like where it chooses to go. There are publishers that don't want us there, and we find alternate solutions. Like we will curate a manual sample at the domain level, you know, with you know, a TTL of say like 30 days or something like that we can reasonably collect it in. And that's only necessary for say like a short list of few hundred sites. We work with a lot of the managers in the space, and they ask us to come. Especially there's been a lot of one of the things I've seen recently, a near draconian expectation of brand safety. So for that reason, it requires page complete archives of content, where like if you provide you know, inventory for a certain website, and on one of the pages it says like "but" in not so nice terms, like some TSPs will want to block your whole site for that. Some SSPs will as well. So increasingly we are being requested to perform these sorts of scans. And not every scan we do requires collecting things like ad density and refresh timing. Obviously, trying to collect refresh timing increases the time we spend on page drastically, because we have to spend at least 30 seconds there to see if someone's going to refresh in 30 seconds or less. And depending on the ask, depending on, you know, the absence of data we have for a certain publisher, we'll crawl them using different playbooks, using different quality IPs. We try to let people block, you know, very transparently using, you know, data center blocklists wherever possible.
Right.
But we have like a small amount of crawls that are going to get through just to collect the minimum required amount of information, and sort of like recognizing when we are being actively blocked helps us, you know, not spend more time trying to go there.
Right. Your origin story is also very interesting. I think you did a BA in theater, and you did a bilingual children's play, an academic presentation, a lot of stuff which was completely non-technological, right?
Yeah, as I said, I've been like a technology hobbyist. I started in a computer science program at NC State, but I was undiagnosed ADD at the time. I had an incredible difficulty with school, but I really gravitated towards theater because it was a very tactile sort of program. It's like a place where you show up and apply yourself, and then you get a degree. It's like, you know, a lot less, I don't know, you could really focus your attention completely on something, and, you know, with your body, which was really helpful to me. And then after college, learning more about myself, getting my life together, I was able to turn it into you know, my hobbies into a career. So, but, you know, the things I learned in theater were invaluable for sure, because I'm sure you will appreciate, having a product is great. People need to know about it and understand, like, what's the story. People are more attracted to stories than products, and so that's what theater, you know, gives you the tools for, I think, to craft a story.
Absolutely. No, I myself do theater. I'm also a part of a theater group. So so off and on I keep doing plays. So I can completely relate to you. So
I actually, that's where I met my wife, was in a play. My friend and I had written a performance in North Carolina, and it was a summer stock theater, and I was, you know, my stage wife is now my real wife. And right after that, then I got that job at Conversant. So that was sort of like the last theater thing. I've like, even you know, getting ahead of myself, I'm looking at the questions here, but like I was in a cover band for a few years when I lived in Colorado. Wow. Still like just do, you know, I like to sing and act whenever I can. It's just now my time is a little more spoken for, so I try to do the things that are more flexible. So I'm not in as many like productions right now because they are very, intensive with your time. Totally understandable. You need people who show up and are committed, crazy hours to do something like that. But now I just am attending the theater more.
Okay.
As it were.
Yeah, no, I think it definitely demands time. Unless you have an option where you can go on the weekends probably and do a play. But yes, production takes time. Very interesting. So can you tell me some of the plays you have done? Is it online available or something?
Yeah, like in college, my senior performance was The Seagull. This play that my wife and I were in was called the American Patriots. It's a story about, I don't know if you're familiar with the tradition of the outdoor theater in the South, in North Carolina, where I grew up. There are like a dozen plus theaters that exist in varying points in the state, and they tell different parts of the like Revolutionary War story, and they do so in like outdoor theaters, with horses and guns and fighting and all this stuff. So that was a big production. I've done like I did like several summers like that because it's like one of the few kinds of jobs that employ theater majors. Hard to get employed as a theater major. Like during the summers, it was always a big lifeline. And when I moved to LA, where I got my first job at Conversant, I was trying to act. I just graduated college. I was in some sketch shows. I did a lot of improv theater out there. Yeah, that was a lot of fun because it works around your schedule. And I was actually a party clown. That was my first job in LA. I was a costume character for a kid's birthday parties. So
oh my God.
I did everything and anything prior to this.
No, I've heard. I think Raleigh in North Carolina is a very student town.
That's where I started my collegiate career. I went to 3 different colleges before graduating. I went to NC State first for, they have a notable computer science program. And, I, like I said, couldn't hack it there. And so I went to a more theater-focused program. I ended up graduating from UNC Charlotte.
Yeah.
But Raleigh was great. I love Raleigh as a town. Great theater scene, great, food, drink, lots of culture. It's good.
Right. No, I also do a lot of improv theater. So in improv, I think one of the plays we did was totally improv, plus it was blindfolded. So the entire was made to sit, and because we're doing it for blind children, so they were all sitting.
That's amazing.
And then all of us that closed our eyes, and then we started off with a concept. The first guy said a line, and then you started building a story out of it, and then the whole circle started building a story out of it, and we started enacting and kind of physical theater as much as possible and complete improvisation. So that was like we were also not seeing, but we were also visualizing and imagining, and the children were also imagining. So it was like a beautiful experience. We called it the rainbow. But,
yeah, it sounds really rewarding.
Yeah, that was very interesting. So totally relate, man. It has been amazing for me also. It has been amazing for you also.
Yeah, how did you find yourself in this world? Did you actually go to school for computer type things?
Yeah. So I actually kind of studied. I did masters in computer science, and then I think back in 2008, 2009, I thought, let me do something of my own. I came into advertising, and then first what we did is build an optimization platform for brands. That if you spend on Google, you spend on Facebook, all of that you spend, how do you optimize it using on one platform? Seeing media getting bought and coming in from affiliates. And we were seeing coming into this Google Analytics and seeing a lot of vanity metrics with 20 pages visited, with 0 seconds of time on the site, and then something is wrong. And that is the time when I got introduced to ad fraud. That, okay, there is something wrong happening here. And then we thought, okay, why don't we build something to counter it? So then we started building this. And at that time, you had Integral Ad Science and I think Double Verify were already there. So we thought, how do we differentiate in terms of what we are doing and solving the same problem? So we started by taking the transparency approach that, okay, we'll build plug and play filters. So that's what we do. This is so vast and the fraud creeps in from God knows how many places. And we see weird patterns coming in. So we started off with about 10 filters. Now we are 200 plus. AI-driven filters now, looking at the data from various angles. And every time when you look at the same data, you find something very interesting. It's very, it's a very, I would say, rewarding thing for us when we are kind of catching more and more. For a lot of customers, they don't like getting reported 70% fraud, but it is what it is.
I mean, better than not being reported on an actual problem of 70% fraud.
It's interesting. I think let me ask some very interesting questions also you have. Yeah, what was the moment you realized I need to build DeepSea? What was that moment? I mean, you were working comfortably, Conversant, Pixelate.
Yeah, I have at times struggled working for people, even though, like, frankly, I had amazing employers. I couldn't say a bad thing about Conversant or Pixelate. Working there was great. They're really understanding people, really good employers. I'd say that the thing that struck me the hardest in my day-to-day was that the kinds of requests I was fielding were more about, well, what does this mean? Why are you flagging this thing? Like how do I interpret this flag? And so like one of the things I wanted to do was build a platform where all the evidences are very plain for you. And so I think we have achieved that. It took some doing, but we have achieved that with our, compliance report. It's basically just like a laundry list of the tests that we run, and it says like, this is a good result, this is a bad result, this is a good result, this is a bad result, and then like an individual failed test that's very high impact can be like enough to say like, don't bid on this site. And so like you can understand that because of the way that we put that out there. So like, yeah, I was honestly spending a lot of time just answering questions about methodology. I'm sure you faced that as well. Just like, okay, what does this IVT type mean? Like IIS doesn't flag this thing. What does your thing mean? And so like putting together, time series explainers for like every individual case became sort of a mind-numbing thing for me. So that was one thing, is I wanted to, build a radically transparent platform as much as I could. And the second thing was that the work that I was doing there for marketing was really creating a lot of success for them. So one of the things I think that has helped us, I mean, we have never done paid marketing. Everything that has come to us is because of the work that we do and the writing we do. And frankly, I mean, I haven't done enough of it this year because we're working on product. We're, blessed that we have enough clients to, keep building the product. And that's sort of taken the front seat for me. But like, just seeing that, like actually, getting really deep into the problems and explaining them created such good business outcomes. It's like, well, if I'm doing this for them, I could do this for myself.
Yeah.
And I did, and it worked. And the first big win that we had was, as I mentioned, like our first playbook, we were looking for pop under redirect fraud. And, our playbooks are, our data is all first party for the most part. As in like, we go there, we collect it. It's experiential. Right. It's deterministic in a way. Like certain things are deterministic about it. Like I go to, porn site ABC, I try to play the video, I'm taking in a new window to this one, and I carry these query string parameters. Like that all happened, it's deterministic. Right. It's then like, but what we can't say from that perspective is, like N% of visits to this site are generated this way. Yeah. So what we did find was that Yahoo was buying like 1% of traffic from porn pop-unders, piracy pop-unders, and incentivized traffic sources. So like all that stuff wrapped up. We found the query string parameters that signaled those specific events. They had a bad traffic sourcing partner. Like that's how it tends to happen. It's like they didn't do it on purpose. They just paid for traffic sourcing. They got what they paid for. And it was, it was bad. And in partnership with our first big partner, we were able to quantify that we could really put how much of the traffic is generated this way, part of the problem to the test. You can imagine 1% of Yahoo traffic is enormous in terms of like spend commitments. So like we managed to get our client, even though we're not, MRC accredited, quite a big refund because of the deterministic type of evidence that we have.
Right.
Couldn't really argue with it. And so like that really proved it for us that this is something worth doing. And, my background's in, fraud detection. So we started as a fraud detection tool, but become so much more than that since.
That is sweet. I think getting a refund from a chargeback, which has happened, I think that's amazing. And that wouldn't happen unless you provide proper evidence, which is...
Exactly. So this is like, an evidence platform. I am, like I said, radically transparent with our clients. If they think something is wrong, maybe it is. I go and check and tell them, yes, it is. Or like if they're like, I'm, seeing there's been malware on this site, what kind and from where, and we, send them a complete dump of our crawl logs. It's like, it's no problem to me. Again, because like our data isn't privileged, it's something I can share. It's not sourced from, aggregated third-party data. Like there are some problems we're not going to solve because we're not a, botnet detection company. I leave that to, there's plenty of good people in the space doing that. And they have different sort of like contractual, restrictions on the data they provide. Whereas like we can afford to be very transparent. So, I think that was one of the things I thought was needed, and why we needed to build Deep Sea. Sort of bringing it back to your question is like people need to understand that despite the fact that the traffic's gonna rate clean, gonna rate viewable, like here's the evidence that shows it's not worth investment.
And what is a misconception buyers or publishers have about MFA and IVT? What you encounter when you speak to them?
Yeah, a good question. MFA, I mean, it's a can of worms right now. I take it to mean arbitrage. There's a lot that we flag that's adjacent to that. As I mentioned, like what we flagged, like where Deep Sea I think offers the most value is sort of the stuff that today is called MFA or like otherwise would fail the screenshot test. And a lot of that right now is what I would call AI slop. what we call in our taxonomy templated sites, because they're generated without like, human oversight, either like by a script or, using an LLM. But like I'd say a main misconception about MFA is that it's a site level issue, because it rarely is a site level issue. It's very much a seller or like a organizational level issue, and that's something I've learned a lot more, I'd say, since I left Pixelate. Like I've always had the tools to come to this conclusion myself, but so often I can make my life easier these days by flagging networks of sites based on like signals that relate to a publisher or seller. Like it's something that we do to stay ahead of threats with a very small team is identifying, mention like analytics tag. Like that's a perfect example. Like presence of a certain analytics tag can be evidence that a site is piracy, because the only sites that apply that tag are related to a certain like group of sites. Or the same is true for MFA. Like honestly, the vast majority of what's called MFA today is much more easily identifiable using signals simply from ads.txt than it is anything else. Like, yeah, we do primary research, but we only need to do primary research as far as it takes us to find the network signals that better and more proactively identify the activity. Because you can imagine that like they're deploying detection they're deploying anti-detections.
Right.
But like that's all really trivial. Like once we've done the primary research on an organization and we can understand how they monetize. Like there's sort of like two problems that you will probably face as someone in the moderation space, and that's like a bad actor who's repeatedly a bad actor, or probably harder, and this is where we rely on our domain level signals, is when somebody generates a new account ID for every iteration of the scheme that they're perpetrating. So like, this is something we see a lot more associated with, say, AI Slop. They're not counting on long-term health of their seller account. They're counting on a short-term burst of, monetizable impressions that maybe they get through the payout period, maybe they don't. It's a numbers game. And those are the cases where you really rely on like the in-the-moment detections. And like for us, like we can't rely on network signals, but that's a lot less what's happening when we're talking about MFA. It's a lot more an issue of organizations. And you can filter out so much MFA just by identifying the organizations behind the most active rings of it. I'd say that's probably the biggest misconception, that you need a domain block list. Like, yeah, domain block list will get the job done, but it's actually a lot more effective to block supply paths or sellers. I mean, that's largely the case. I think that like the most useful product, but one that maybe is like sort of legally hard to sell, is a seller block list. And seller ID block list may be more easy to sell, on a legal basis, but that's something that could get a lot done. And that's a lot of what we found with our most recent piracy research at the beginning of the year, is that they were a core roster of like accounts and managers who allowed this to happen. And that happens because they provide the opportunity for the site to, create the direct node in the supply chain. Like if nobody is the primary monetization partner, there's no reselling. Like there's a lot of resellers who do not work with bad sites directly, but it doesn't matter because they work with the managers who do. So like, if you're not like curating at the supply path level, you will sort of miss those situations.
Right. Now, I mean, when you go ahead and you identify these organizations and go ahead and block them for your customers, do you see new ones keep popping up, or
of course, yeah. It can be something really subtle. Like there is a person we've repeatedly called out, and not posted, but entity who we repeatedly called out in this research I decided, and they just changed their ad system name so very slightly. Like it was abc.com, now it's abd.com, and it's like they continue to monetize. It can be like that, or they can come up with something more. There can be bigger differences, but like that's just an example we saw. It's like some people try sophisticated means, some people don't even rely on the sophistication to continue what they're doing.
I've been speaking with some of the networks, and I think some of them are into ARP space. They do ARBing, ARP search ARP, and then eventually give it to the Yahoo feeds or free stars of the world. And but I mean, there's something which I don't get very clearly, that that there is Google on the other side, Yahoo on the other side, or there are tools on the other side which are measuring you on quality. And if you have anything less than 6 on 10 or 5 on 10, your feed is cut, you're gone. Till they keep doing this and generating more and more garbage, and which they know that it has a direct impact on their revenue and the business. So I don't know, it doesn't have the
factually speaking, people want to keep monetizing as much inventory as they can, and there's very few who would take a very swift and sort of like final judgment against anyone.
Yeah, but
without really strong evidence.
The margins are getting compressed for them also. Earlier, I've heard that earlier they used to have margins of 200%, 300%. Now they're kind of getting compressed to 20%, 30%. So the anti-fraud thing all the measures which are being taken right from publisher intelligence, I think all of them are having effect in some or the other way to reduce this. All the reports talk of different numbers in terms of the fraud which is happening. Maybe true in some senses, but I also see, at least in some verticals, that the trend is declining. There is more and more monitoring happening, more moderation happening. People are getting serious and real about it, which is still, I mean, the whole thing is still gray. It is not black and white. I mean, you can easily spin up stuff and monetize it.
Yeah, and I sort of, before MFA became Arbitrage, I made for advertising, was what people were saying. By the way, never introduced that into the lexicon, but it's here now. But the core of the idea, I think, is important. It's like, who's designing for money and who's designing for, or who's writing just because they're passionate or interested in the content. And like, at the end of the day, yeah, we're all trying to make a buck, but some people are trying to make a buck before anything else, and they really don't care about anything else. It's pretty obvious. It's like sort of disingenuous to show otherwise, but or to say otherwise. I think you can tell when you look at it. It's sort of like the argument around pornography, but those kind of properties are just going to, they're going to design for the the system that they're in. So if more people are running a certain type of detection vendor, they will devise their scheme in a way that is cast them in a favorable light by that detection methodology. It's just sort of the classic cat and mouse game. I don't foresee it ending anytime soon. Like, an example of what we see now, there's like a certain publishing group who's doing just insane numbers. They're rated clean by all the technologies, and it's not like it is fraud. Like, if I have to trust that, like, if every traffic measurement vendor is saying that they're humans visiting these sites, then fine. But they're not. It's not Arbitrage. It's designed for Google Discover and Google News recommendations. So like, they just they find a keyword or combination of topics that gets promoted like via push notification to somebody's like Google News notification bar, and they click through, and it's just like a new flavor of SEO. It's like they're probably doing the most numbers of any non-paid traffic source ever, and they just at this point in time, and they just continue to do very well because they're designing for the system. And it's not they write the same art. They have like a dozen properties at any given time, and they're writing the same articles across all of them. Maybe like not word perfect the same, but like they find a pattern that works to get recommended by Google, and they adhere to it strictly, and they succeed. Yeah. And like, that's can't be. I mean, you can be mad, but it's just sort of like, why? It's like, if it's human and the content is not straight up misinformation, it's not straight up quote unquote slop. They good job, I guess. It's sort of like an uncomfortable situation. People design for the system that they're in, and the current system is a little bit inscrutable because transparency is on the decline, I guess. More people spending on black box systems, more people, less attributable search, more AI recommendations. It's where there is this much opacity, then the made for advertising type folks of the world will thrive, I think.
Right. No, I think Google is also trying. I think they introduced RSOC. So now on the pages, now on the lander itself, Google is putting up their ads right there, so the user doesn't have to go to a separate search page. Now, when they're doing that, Google is also trying to match right from the keyword. Which keyword did you bid on? What was the ad copy you showed? What was the link? Are the meta tags matching? Is the content matching? And then you see the ads. But the thing is, there is a way to spin up all cookie cutter websites. You can make all these exact websites similar for law, for tech, for health, for business, for lifestyle. And they're very similar in terms of content, and Google puts the ads. Because
I don't know why.
Yeah, it's all matching, right? I mean, right from the keyword bid to landing on the page, and you put Facebook on it. I mean, everything matches. So technically, as you said, right? I mean, it is not misinformation. The information is correct. It is a valid website. It has valid ads on it. It is just that it was spun up half an hour ago.
Yeah.
Right?
Exactly. And that's what we are flagging the most these days, honestly, is that sort of thing, low effort, original content. Certainly a lot of, as I mentioned, we work with a lot of the managers in the space, and like, they're in existential threat right now because there's so much, AI blog content trying to eat up, the limited amount of money going to that sort of vertical. We've been criticized, we've been praised for, trying to, as a result of the research we do, they, do not accept as many AI blogs. And there's a lot of people on blogging subreddit saying this is like draconian. It's like industry blacklists are bad, which by the way, this isn't like an industry blacklist. This is a product that we offer, which is a list of sites classified as peddling AI content. And if someone wants to do what they do with it, then they will, but it's just like, it rubs people the wrong way.
Right.
And at the end of the day, I am here for if I want my job security, I have to keep the open web working as long as possible. And it's not going to keep working as long as possible. Who's going to stick around if all the content is trash and just regurgitate it? And if it's just because it's good at capturing search intent doesn't mean it should be there. I mean, we have to be ideological at some point.
Right. Absolutely. Absolutely. Because the intent for that page is not right. The intent is to monetize and not serve value to the user. The form on that page might not even work. The survey on the page might not even work. So I think those are all additional signals to figure out that, hey, the submit button doesn't work on this page. But there is a page. So there's a...
See, that I'm also seeing a lot, just classic gray hat SEO strategy, buying old local businesses that have backlinks from Yelp or whatever, and turning those into exactly what you described, a site that now shows ads, was spun up 30 minutes ago. I did a LinkedIn post recently showing a school that was recently closed had their site turned into an ad farm. That's happening just all the time across every TLD, across every region and language. It's just happening all the time. And the single biggest vector I have seen for it is AdSense to monetize. It's just categorically AdSense. That's just what it is. It's if you see, it really seems like there should be controls that if this site was first, looking at the past 365 days, if this is the first time we've seen a site in the bid stream and the only place it's available is through Google AdSense, and that site only has one ads.txt entry, just suppress it. There need to be settings based on the temporality of the website. In the GSP, I think we have seen robust bid stream history for this site. That would be an easy box I would check every time, and yet it's not there.
Yeah, you need a central repository for this, which they could connect to and check. Because when you don't have the whole universe, Google has the whole universe, at least on what they were. But there's something they don't provide. I think for them also it's not possible to provide because they can't grade their own homework. They have AdSense, they have RSOC, they want search traffic other than organic. They are facilitating players to come on and give them as much traffic as possible from wherever it is. Eventually Q4 comes, or this Q3 comes, and Q4 they issue chargebacks on people, and that's become kind of a practice. They keep doing that. But the real problem, it stays there, it remains there. You have to constantly in the moment fix it as much as possible, and as you guys are doing, as much as possible clean it up and at the upstream itself, at the moment when you're trying to buy.
There's just the velocity at which new content is created necessitates using a target list, really, or having better controls about the kinds of sites you want to bid on if you're doing a run of network, split of the campaign. I think there needs to be a concerted initiative at the various DSPs to make run of network more attractive, because it's really not an attractive option right now. I say we offer a blacklist, I think is great, but it's not going to do everything, especially because we'll only find out that some sites exist from looking at your reporting, and the site didn't exist yesterday. How am I supposed to have known it would exist today? And why were you bidding on it? We'll give you the in-flight recommendations to stop bidding on it, but it's again, the problem is more easily avoidable by what I think are some common sense filters that don't really exist anywhere, but I think they should.
I think a whitelist-based approach for bidding is also fine. If you know that, hey, this has worked for you historically and this is good, clean, it. Put the publisher intelligence there, but define your whitelist. Make sure it is having the impressions you want, and go ahead and start bidding there. That is probably, I think, one of the cleanest approaches these guys can do, because the moment you head into the run of network and leave it to the DSP to figure it out, then that's it. I think this problem of AI content and AI sites is so massive, and it's only going to be increasing as we speak. Checking in the moment, and then I think what you guys are doing, trying to figure out who is there and who is out there, it's going to be very, very important for people when they decide even to buy. At least on the web, they must know. And I would actually extend this by saying that given all the vibe coding platforms, the same problem sooner or later would come to apps also.
I think that it came there first and foremost, honestly. It's we're building an in-app product right now. The V1 is more based on static analysis. So that's, whatever signals we can get from stores and decompiling APKs without actually instrumenting them in, running long complex sessions. But there's a lot of things that we can look for right away without even having to load the app. Just, like, again, velocity signals, like when was this app created? Like, how did it get so many reviews? How did it get so many downloads? There's a lot of slop out there. I mean, there's a lot of games that are not differentiated and yet have like a huge amount of downloads. Like, honestly, I wouldn't do any advertising in-app that didn't connect to a really strong action at the end. Something as strong as like add to cart or install. I think like CPI campaigns obviously makes sense to run in-app. It would be silly to run it in web at the same scale. But that's about it. Just because like there's so many, ignoring the provenance of the content, but
right.
Just like how easy it is to accidentally click on something. It just like happens. Like, see, click-through rates are ridiculous in app, and especially looking at certain vendors, certain types of, ad units based on which vendor it is, have much harder to close, X areas than others. It's just like silly.
Yeah, that's by design.
By design, yeah. It's like you have to think about the analysis, like the genuineness of the content, because it's way harder to verify the genuineness of the content in app. If we're talking about Android, and they're sort of like, signed developer APKs only sort of new policy. Basically, it just weakens independent verifiers' ability to go to a third-party app store, download this, download an APK, install it, test it for fraud, because so much fraud is only going to manifest itself if it sees you have installed it from the Play Store, and you can't bust open the secured requests in Android without like very significant reverse engineering efforts. And even then, you're not going to get 100% success because it's a device that's very resistant to being reverse engineered a lot of the times.
Right.
I guess that is to say, like, you got to be really, in-app scares me still. I would only use it in very limited circumstances. All the same problems that exist in web exist in app. They're just less well understood. Yeah, like, there's a significant cloaking problem of piracy that we read about a lot, and the same thing is happening in app. We just have a less good view of it, frankly. They like tend to masquerade as like some, utility, like maybe it's a notes app or something like that, but actually the only way that people are arriving there is from, a pirate website that's pushing people to download their APK.
Oh, yeah.
And so, like, that sort of stuff is happening all the time. Like, even the store listings are not super trustworthy. It's always about, like, how does premium inventory connect to sort of like the seedy parts of the web. And our thesis is that people really like free stuff. They like porn, they like piracy. That's why they go on the web so much of the time. And sort of ignoring that aspect of the problem is not, we like, most of our crawls start on those kind of sites. A lot less of our crawls start on the, ad monetized web, or the premium like display and video ad monetized web.
The gold is there.
There, and like Telegram, WhatsApp, that's where so much of the fraud is originating right now. And so like we have a bespoke Telegram crawler, and then when we find Telegram formatted links on piracy sites, then we can visit those and understand where they're sending people to, things like that. Like,
our audience includes brand safety and fraud teams using platforms. We do pre and post bid hygiene. Where should they collaborate with publisher intelligence versus expecting it to be a one-click block list? Or even setting up a campaign, it's very important to have publisher intelligence right there before even you start.
It's probably like the single most important dimension of analysis. Early on, I may not have realized it quite as much, but if I were optimizing my campaigns, I would do so mostly based on the seller level reporting. Seller and exchange pair being the supply path. I try to optimize at that level as much as I would try to at the site and app level. You get a lot more bang for your buck doing it at the seller level, except for where it's not possible, which is when someone is sophisticated, it won't be possible. A bad actor, you'll have to block each individual property they set up to perpetrate fraud.
In first year as a CEO, what was the hardest non-technical problem you had to face?
Gosh, there's so many. I mean, the current one I'm facing right now is like doing more marketing, like prioritizing the time. I really want to be doing more writing for our blog. I just am, find myself stretched fairly thin at times. I think that's a newer problem, but before, the older problem was just being a salesperson, which is never something I've been. Actually, like after college, I did have a job as a guy who would go to like department stores and try to sell made-for-TV products. I'd go on the announcement system. I'd be like, everybody, there's a free gift in women's shoes. Come on down, and give them a pitch and sell them the products that sucked. So it was a lot easier because our product didn't suck to sell it, but still hard to get in that mode and also do everything else. So I'd say like becoming a salesperson was like the hardest thing for me. It's rewarding to talk to everybody and get feedback and feature requests and things like that. Definitely rewarding, but hard.
So, I mean, as a salesperson, where did you see challenges coming in? What were the objections you saw?
I mean, the activation, probably the biggest one is activation. That's like an art form, is like a really good partnerships person has a sixth sense for where the product should be integrated, and in order to get the most adoption with the least lift. And that's something we still struggle with. When our original ethos is we want to have a product that's has predictable fees, very much inspired by something like SimilarWeb, which I've been a power user of in various functions in my life, and giving people the tools to do their own research and then like export CSVs of data for plug and play anywhere. But actually finding that some people didn't want to do that. Some people want the CPM based, the usage based model, or there's just understanding the reasons people want to pay how they do and like have it integrated where they need it, and like just learning all those things is a lot, and it still is a lot. I'd say that was something that didn't come super naturally.
Yeah, pricing is always a discovery, and I think when you're speaking to people, you can start coming to know, I mean, whether it is a fixed price you want to pay or, as you said, CPM based, what works for you.
Yeah.
All right. Where can listeners learn more about DeepSea and your research?
Yeah, I recommend our blog. Deepsea.io is our company name and website. Check out the blog and the heading, and that's where, probably the stuff I'm most proud of is there in the blog, all our original research. Like, there's some product marketing stuff there, sure, but you'll see also like really long and in-depth research about, sellers who perpetrated certain schemes and how it worked. And I'd say that's the thing that, again, I'm really big on transparency. Some of the transparency we've managed to achieve, I think, is really cool, and I recommend people check that out. It also gives you an idea of like the data set that we're working with all the time. I always provide big data sheets in whatever we publish, so that should hopefully get people familiar with the type of lengths we go to do what we do.
And a professional habit you are trying to unlearn as a founder. I'm just saying, yeah, I mean, if you're doing daily stand-ups and they're not resulting in what you want, then that is something you would want to unlearn and probably establish something else.
Yeah, that makes sense. Yeah, for me, probably it's being a people pleaser. I just, I am one, and so I feel very responsible to like respond to any, request or message in close to like real time on Slack, and sometimes it just sort of like kills my mental health, because especially now that I moved to the East Coast, our clients are active after I'm active on the West Coast, and like I, am always glued to my phone. I'm not like very fun with my wife and dog, after work sometimes. Just learning to detach, I'd say, necessary for a founder, because it is your baby. Just sort of like learning that there are times when it's appropriate to be working, sometimes it's not.
How many hours do you put every day?
Nowadays, it's a lot more balanced. It has really depended at various points in the business. Like at the beginning, there wasn't, I didn't really have clients, and so the work I did was just in development, and when there was a natural stopping point, because we finished a sprint, then like I had some free days. But these days, I try to work between 8 and 10 hours. I try not to do more, just because like we are a small team. If we all work like more than that, then we're just gonna not be a company in like a year or so. We just have to be reasonable. We are like hiring people now, which is nice, and I expect to work closer to 8 than 10 as we do that more. I really believe in the work-life balance. It's been hard to enforce at times, but there's no point in doing all the work if you're not having any life.
If you're not happy, then you don't want to go in tomorrow again. And I think, yeah, you don't, it's a marathon, right? I mean, you need to run a little longer than what it is.
Exactly. This company has been going now for like 5 years, which is amazing to me. So we're, doing it at the pace we can do it, and, keep adding clients. I'm sure we could accelerate with more man hours, but we have the benefit of owning the whole company, so no one's pushing us to do that. And it's, I'd rather offer better service, grow more organically via word of mouth, than beat myself up to sort of like feel the volume of work I can't reasonably accept. The volume we can accept is increasing very fast now as we're like establishing better partnerships that allow us to bring on more people to do better customer service. But this is a self-serve product. It can be, but really it works best with, customer service and helping people get best use of the data and come up with plans for how they want to analyze their performance, and consulting with our clients closely to, improve their outcomes. It's all like, that's the rewarding part of it. It wouldn't be as much fun if we couldn't do any of that, just because we were struggling to, service everyone a little bit. So I'd rather give them like more comprehensive service to the clients we have.
I was about to ask that question, that is it a self-serve platform or it's more of a consulting and
It can be. Yeah, we have everything from like custom products to fully self-serve.
All right. And do you serve outside North America?
We do. Like, yeah, big part of the engagement with Chalice is to provide data from a European perspective. We have infrastructure all over the world that we can activate with very little notice. which would allow us to give regionally specific insights. Functionally, like I do most of the selling and I'm on the East Coast, so that does make it a little hard to do sales cycles with some personas, but we work with Europeans, we work with Americans, and not as much in like MENA region right now, but we have the tools to support it. It's just sort of like, I think having the team that's maybe located in London or something to make that easier would allow us to more reasonably service them, because like I mentioned, I want to give good service to anyone we have, and if I'm not awake, I can't give good service. I can like ad hoc, but it's better to be working in the trenches with people.
Cool. I think I asked all the professional questions to you. Now there is some lightning round which the team has put up. It is fun, fast. So I'll go with the first one. First thing you do when you open your laptop in the morning?
Honestly, I'm probably looking at the news. It's a sad thing, but it's true. I got to know what fresh hell to expect that day. It's in varying years that can be more fun. This year it's not as much fun, so just sort of like figure out where the world is at. That's the first thing I do in the morning.
Which news channels are your favorites, or the news portals?
I actually use Google News, and I just sort of like curate the sources I like.
Okay.
Sometimes they have both have good topics, but no, I don't like stan any particular media source.
What powers you more, SQL, SQL, or coffee?
Probably coffee, yeah. SQL's great, but it doesn't come out very good without.
If AdFraud were a movie genre, what would it be? Thriller, sci-fi, or dark comedy?
Probably like a dark comedy. Like two different games. It's sort of like, if you would,
A comedy on the buyer.
Yeah, exactly.
And dark on the other side.
Exactly. The other side not really caring about what the buyer is doing because they have already like anticipated the thing, and they're on their jets, they're on their yachts, whatever. Meanwhile, we're putting on this like whole security theater. Like, yeah, we managed to catch all the bad guys, but there's a lot out there probably still right now, laughing it up.
Yeah, as we speak. You studied theater. So what's your favorite line or quote from a play that fits startup life?
And now I'm sort of wishing I would have looked at this lightning question beforehand.
Or tell me any favorite line or quote from a play which you actually said. Maybe the one from the outdoor theater you spoke about.
You're putting me on the spot. I don't know. Life's like a box of chocolates. How about that? That's it's not from my play. Sorry, I'm like so bad. Even my wife asked me like, "What's your favorite movie this year?" I'm like, "Oh, I've forgotten every movie that I ever watched." When you asked me that question.
When you're not fighting bots, what totally non-tech thing helps you recharge?
Music, and comedy. I like to. I very rarely find myself watching like serious dark dramas after work. A lot more. Content like I Think You Should Leave or like Dropout TV. I really like improv comedy. Good feeling things. I love my dog. I'm an unapologetic dog dad. I love to hang out with my dog. I go out into the grass and I roll over on my back with him. We look at the clouds. That gets me.
Nice. What's the name of your dog?
Beaver. Yeah.
Okay. What's your nerdy flex? Something which you are weirdly proud of mastering.
I think a big reason that I am in this space today and just a tech hobbyist is because when I grew up, I lived on campus of a school because my dad was a teacher and dorm master. And so there were content restrictions on the internet there. And so just like learning how to bypass them and, get to whatever properties I wanted. That was at the time probably a big flex for me.
Oh, yeah, it would be.
It was really silly, actually, at the time. So we had this T1 connection. It was blazing fast. Nothing ever I had experienced like it, but it was monitored. But you would get these, at various restaurants and businesses, you would get the AOL trial disk, and I managed to run AOL. And when I was connecting via the AOL client, I found that I bypassed, sort of all the settings that the webmaster had set up for our school, and it just sort of getting, raw unfiltered access. Like a different tunnel, I think, when you... are connecting through the AOL client was they managed to help me bypass, so that was fun. That was it's a silly thing, but that's at the time I was definitely very very much pleased by it.
Okay, if DeepSea had a mascot, what would it be and what would it say?
It would be Tony the target list, and it would say by using a target list. Use a target.
All right. Okay, now we come to the last one. Finish this sentence. AI will never replace
genuine artistic expression. I would say that's the thing that I think it has the hardest time replacing. I say that anyone who's genuinely wants to continue supporting the arts can't really continue support or can't genuinely support or allow AI to try to replace those people. I think that's one thing it shouldn't and can't, even if we allowed it to replace, is a genuine new idea or a way of expressing a cool idea. It's all just derivative.
Yeah, they are putting up some rights control and everything, but I think it's already trained on that.
Yeah. I think it's like more sort of like to get more ideological about it. The sort of like AIification of art is like a end result naturally of like the MBAification of the, you know, the corporate boardroom and strategy. It's like the only things that, and this is just, you know, has parallels to any number of industries, including digital marketing, but it's like if you rely on a provable metric of success for everything in the planning phase, like you're never going to genuinely have the, you know, cojones to create something new. It's sort of like you know, so many sequels, like we know that this kind of movie works. And so like, if we put this kind of character in here, it's like, it's just when everything becomes formulaic, no one really likes what comes out of that. And so that's when you see something like Sinners, for example, which did really well this year and was like a, you know, came from a, you know, virtuoso filmmaker who just had like the idea and didn't know if it would work, and it was a huge success. It's like, that's the kind of stuff people rally behind, and that's the kind of stuff AI is never going to make, because it's just sort of going to rely on what it thinks is going to give the best answer to the question.
And as time progresses, as we move forward next year, 5 years from now, 10 years from now, the amount of self-learning it would do, the amount of dynamism which AI could add to itself. I mean, the level of thinking element, I would say, would increase. And you may find AI generating a movie completely based on arbitrary thoughts, which it has not been trained upon. Could be a possibility.
Yeah, I mean, I think there's two outcomes I can see from something like that. I totally agree. It could be a possibility. I think that we'll find either we're not quite as unique as we think we are as humans, and that, like, you know, something being an output of a human is not necessarily even a preferred or good thing, or we're just going to find that it continues to be sort of like uninspired in ways that are like subtle and hard to explain, I think, because you're right. It may be able to create something new, but it still may not resonate. And so we're either going to find that it continues to not resonate, or it does resonate, and like what we thought came out of sort of like the culmination of human experience could be just as well expressed in, you know, a neural network, which is its own problem. And hopefully by that time, if it comes to that, there'll be sort of like a benevolent deployment of AI, because otherwise we'll have already found, I think by that time, there's a lot of other things that humans could be replaced for, and it's just sort of...
I think, I mean, one frontier which AI should push and can push is healthcare. And they should push healthcare.
Absolutely, yeah.
New drug discovery, molecular biology, figure out something, at least compress the time which science used to take to discover something. That is something which should definitely benefit humanity. But other than that, at the moment, I think it is still very, very early. People are just playing with generative AI.
Yeah, it feels like, you know, obviously it's in a very protozoic stage compared to what it's going to be. I don't know if the future of AI is LLM based, probably something more sophisticated, but yeah, I do hope it's used more towards like the kinds of purposes you're describing.
I mean, yeah, AI
we will see. We're just along for the ride, man.
This is a very interesting topic, yeah. But I think, we had thanks for the time. It was fantastic kind of chatting with you, understanding more about what you do, your interests, what have you done earlier, which was very, very interesting and insightful.
Yeah, thank you for having me.
No worries, man. I think we should stay in touch. When this series comes out, I think we'll share this with you anyway.
So yeah, let's keep in touch. See what we can do.
Perfect, Rocky. Have a